And I remember that you talked about a page that your kids have on Instagram. And as I was going through your social media, I found that page. I clicked on it, and I spent the last like 15 minutes like grinning from ear to ear, laughing with joy. Your kids are adorable. That page
Oh,
is amazing. We might not even talk about you in this episode. We might just talk about your kiddos.
got the wrong people on then. I should have brought someone else.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's great. They'd love to hear that. They're very passionate about food and nutrition, and yeah, and they're quite cute with it as well, so it works.
Oh, the videos were amazing. I think it was Bailey who did one about some beef jerky that he made. I guess he was going away to Wales for the day or something. Is that like a field trip?
He was going for like I think 5-6 days. I mean, it was a few
Oh,
days.
okay.
So we
Wow.
that was a bit of a challenging, interesting situation as to how we managed his food. So we just basically sent him with tons of jerky because they were staying somewhere where they didn't have great access to food. So, or our kind of food, should we say? So yeah, he was involved in the process of making his own food for that week.
That's amazing. I love the way he held up the plate. He showed the beef jerky, showed how it was different, how he made it himself. He was so proud. He thanked Dr. Chafee for like teaching him how to do it. And he always ends his videos by waving and saying bye. Like, so cool. So cool. Get to see his breakfast options. He was making waffles with eggs and bacon and sausage. Was it difficult for them to go through some type of transition where they were eating more animal products or in a more like carnivorous way?
I not necessarily eating more animal products because they already ate animal products, and actually for them it was the biggest thing for them to move away from has been sugar and grains. So a good year and a half ago they would have been eating a very classic big bowl of cereal, not the best cereal, breakfast like most kids do, or they'd be having kind of toast and jam, that kind of stuff, um and obviously as kids and the exposure that they have to sugar, especially in schools and someone's birthday parties and all of that kind of stuff, that's really been the hardest thing I think as kids for them to not consume as much of. And my daughter in fact doesn't have any at all, and Bailey's now just really fruit now and again. So that's been the hardest thing. And I think just eating meat has not been hard because that's what they loved anyway, and certainly moving or shifting down the amount of vegetables that they were eating, that was not a problem. They loved that part of it. So as soon as we started to eat in a more kind of carnivore way, we thought we'd leave them to just carry on keto, and they were like, nope, you're having steak and no broccoli. We're not having the broccoli either. So it's all been pretty good. But yeah, I think sugar and grain is always the hardest for kids because it's just around them everywhere.
Yeah, I think if I was that age and I told my mom that I wasn't going to have any broccoli, I would probably still be grounded to this day. I'd still be in trouble. So it's so interesting you talk about the schools and sports programs and the birthday parties. Like you hear from parents, like, yes, I understand that sugar's a problem. I would love for them to not consume as much sugar. It's just impossible. I just can't do it because they're going to go to the birthday programs. And it seems like you guys have kind of figured it out.
I know, and I think a part of it is, I mean, there's definitely luck is somewhere in there because, we've given them information, and, I'm a real believer that, if I was to tell them you are not allowed to eat sugar ever, then we wouldn't have this kind of result. So I've just imparted information, and they've seen some of the results in me and my husband, and they really wanted I think, the more meat they ate, I think also they didn't need it as much. So they kind of realized that they're kind of satiated and you don't have that kind of snacking urge. That definitely helps along the way. And I also think that just I think the hardest thing was for my daughter as a teenager at school, bringing in food products that were not really seen as kind of normal and not being able to fit in with everyone in that kind of way. That's a lot of pressure, and she's taken that in her stride, and she's been pretty happy defending herself and her position. And sugar, she admits, is a really hard thing to not have, especially when in cooking class they're making pies and donuts, and that's what they make. And it really does mean she has to, she for a while she had to not cook some of the things or find different ingredients and find her way around it. And then, or she had to make it, then she'd make it but not eat it. And that was really hard for her. And I did get a phone call one day where she said, "Mummy, I ate a cookie at school." And I said, "Look, it's fine." And she's like, "Yeah, but I ate a whole cookie." I said, "Look, it doesn't matter. Just drink some water, you'll be fine." So they've fallen off a few times, but they're so much more conscious of it than they ever would have been before, that I just think whatever happens, we're in a better situation than we ever would have been.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I promise, Olivia, I promise I've got questions for you. We're going to talk about your story. I just have one more question about the kids.
I'm a mom. I'm
What
happy
it,
to talk about my kids as much as I can.
you should. They're beautiful kids. They're very cute. Like I said, there's something different. You see it in people that eat this way. They have bright eyes, a sparkling countenance. It's hard to like really specifically describe, but you can see it. And once you've seen it in enough people, just like the conference we were at, you see it with pretty much everybody who's there. You start to recognize it. These kids have it. And so I was going to ask, how is eating this way affected their schoolwork, and how has it affected things like sports performance when they're playing sports with the other kids who are eating a completely diametrically opposed diet? Do you notice a vast difference in how your kids are performing?
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly my daughter, who's, kind of gone through a few years of eating the wrong thing and maybe seeing a step back in her sports performance, because she was always naturally very sporty, but then went through a period of maybe carrying a bit of excess weight and not having the results she used to have. And so she's kind of going through that puberty stage where she's not finding it as easy. My son is still pretty sporty and runs around no matter what. But yeah, she's managed to really turn around her sports performance. So she plays a sport called netball, always to a really good level, but in the last year her standard has really shot up, and she's getting constant feedback from her coaches saying, "Eden, you're just playing amazing right now, like what has happened to you?" And she's like, "Oh, thank you." And she had sports day last year, and for years she had not bothered to participate in kind of the running races because she didn't think she could do it. And then she got pulled into a few just because there was no one else, and then she ended up winning them. And she's like, "What's going on? I just felt like I could just run, Mummy. I just didn't feel anything stopping me. I just wanted to run faster." So that's just so revelationary, I think, for a child to experience that as well, and to take that on board herself. And I think in terms of academics, she says she has really felt a difference in terms of her alertness, her ability to participate in her schoolwork and do really well. And we had a parent teacher meeting about a month or two ago, and they were just saying, wow, she's really improved. She's really like up there and alert and engaged with everything and getting it the first time. And and she's always pretty bright, but now she just feels like she's got a new thrust in her. It's really exciting, I think, for her, who was going through puberty and struggling with it, and her skin and her face and all of this kind of stuff, which again means a lot to these kids at this age. That's all in a much more positive place than how she likes it. So once they see the benefits, I think there's a lot less I have to do. Like I've laid the seed and sown the seed rather, and she's reaping all the benefits. So I'll just leave her to it. And if she falls off again, that's totally fine. I'm not here to kind of pressure her, because I think that would be the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, kudos to them. Kudos to Bailey and Eden. Yeah, I can tell you and your husband. What's your husband's name?
Greg.
Greg, I can tell you and Greg do not force anything. There's a picture of what looks like a small cannon of whipped cream that you guys could have for dessert with, berries or whatever you guys have on hand. But
Yeah.
it's a wonderful example, again, for all the people out there that tell me it is impossible to raise kids on a proper way of eating. You guys have figured that out, and now it's like propelling itself where you don't have to do much. I think is a wonderful example. So kudos to all of you. It's so cool to see.
Thank you.